Okay, so let me introduce myself. I'm Steve Chilton, author of a couple of books on fell running, and my editor at Sandstone once called me the Bard of Fell Running, which I think is overplaying his cards a bit there, but I quite enjoyed that. And I'm talking today to Paul Tierney, who's an Innovate ambassador and a professional athletics coach. So, hi and welcome, Paul.
How's it going, Steve?
What's the deal? How are you coping with lockdown at the minute?
Well, luckily we still have work because a lot of our work is online, so it's working with people from all over the place, programming for them. So if, for example, they want to do a 100-mile trail race or something like that, or a 10-mile fell race, we work with people from doing different running disciplines. I suppose there's people doing road marathons, 5Ks on the track, a real variety. And because a lot of it's online, we can communicate like this on Zoom or by phone or whatever. And we deliver the programs on a training platform, so that we can tweak them, at the drop of a hat for the individual. So by virtue of that fact, we've not been affected too badly in terms of we can still do the work, and luckily people haven't dropped off and stopped working with us. So in that regard, it's been fine. But I suppose it's been just a weird time, just like it has been for everyone else, I suppose. But ultimately, we've been really lucky because of where we're living in the lakes, and I feel for people who are, maybe who love the outdoors but are stuck in the city and can't kind of get up here and experience this. So really, I can't complain at all, and yeah, I feel a bit guilty almost.
I'm a coach as well, but on a completely different level, just for my running club, voluntarily. And although the law allows you now to do one-to-one social distance coaching, I haven't got back to that yet. I just don't feel comfortable with that yet, so I'll have to wait, I'm afraid. So tell me, you're obviously are you living in Ambleside just at the minute?
I'm in Windermere, so just 4 miles back the road. Okay. So we've lived here for almost 6 years now. I first moved over here in 2013 and lived in Ambleside then, and then I went back to Ireland at the end of that year, back to my job in the police, or the guards in Ireland, and managed to get another career break then towards the end of 2014, and I've been here since.
So tease us with, you're in lockdown, you've got to run locally. What's been your favourite training run out the front door for you?
Well, from the front door, you can do it. It's not, I wouldn't call it a terribly challenging fell run or anything, but you can do a nice loop of Orristhead, School Knot, and Brant Fell, which all overlook Windermere and Bowness, and it's a nice kind of a trail run almost, and it's quite runnable. There's a few steep climbs, but nothing very big, and you've got some nice views. I think there's a nice monument on the top of Orristhead that with a sort of a little skyline map that you can look out bells, and it's popular with tourists, but I'm up there most days from just running from the door, and then I'm only 5 minutes from probably 20 minutes running to get to the bottom of Garburn Pass, and then you're into the Kenmare Fell. So really it's been fine, and that side of the lakes is usually a little bit quieter anyway than the central fells or whatever. So it's been extra quiet, obviously, at the moment, and it's it's a great place to run really and train, and I'm quite keen on not being surrounded by crowds when I go out on the fell. So I tend to try and go in the morning or in the evening when in the height of the summer here, when things are normal, when COVID-19 is not getting in the way, then it does obviously get really busy in the busier parts of the lakes, but you'll always find a kind of a quiet enough hill to run on over this direction. So
when you get to the top of Orist Head and there's the viewpoint and the thought about Wainwright being inspired by that, do you think, I did all that lot once, I remember all that, doing all the Wainwrights in one hit? Does it bring it all back?
I suppose I have thought a bit like that. When you look out and there's because the Wainwright, because they were it does include most of the well-known hills in the lakes, then yeah, I suppose when you do look out at, say, that view of Langdale and that area, then you are kind of thinking, yeah, that they're all pretty much everything you can see is a Wainwright. And I never I suppose I haven't, when I finished doing it last June, I don't know, there was things to do and get back to work and everything else, and I never thought about it terribly deeply or anything. I know Steve, when he did it, kept the blog and wrote some nice stuff, and it was very useful for me then when I went to do it, because I was able to examine what he'd written and look at the film that was made about him. And but I unfortunately didn't document very much, so apart from the odd bit on social media. So I suppose I do regret that a little bit, but I'm not, I don't know, I look at trying to document 6.5 days and the before and after in a, you know, like you, I'm not an author like you, so it's a bit daunting really, and I wanted to just relax and forget about it and it was a nice feeling, you know. It was great to do it, and so I didn't want to forget about that. I suppose I was basking in it a little bit, but I didn't want to have to examine it deeply and kind of look at how I could have improved or anything else. Because now I'm thinking now how I could have done it better and you know, shaved more time off, or and that's going to be the way for a while with that, I think, because I know Steve could have gone quicker if the time he had to beat was quicker, you know what I mean? Like you're never going to set yourself up to take 3 days off a record if you want to play it slightly safe and make sure that you know, it's very hard to know how quick you can do something like that because of all the things that can go wrong. So when I was making out a schedule, I tried to shave time off where I could see where it could be shaved off. So like the rest times, tried to make them shorter, but I still had to play it slightly safe. You know, I didn't know if I'd even get around, never mind go quicker than Steve. So it wasn't really that I was moving any quicker, it was that I shaved time off the rest stops, and I think there's still scope to do that for someone else. So
can I ask you how much you changed either the order or the arrangements of the summits in your round against what he did?
The order was the exact same and the route was almost the exact same. There was a few bits and pieces that we did slightly differently, you know, slightly different lines. My local Wainwright, my closest Wainwright is Sour House, and so I've been up that, you know, umpteen times, and I've gone up the way he went up that day, which was very direct up through past the mast. There's a mast on the side of Garburn Pass there, and I'd done it the way I would always do it, which is up the main part of Garburn, and then you cut off and over the wall and onto the fell. And there's about 2 minutes difference in it, but my way is more gradual. His way was slightly quicker, but my way was nicer after 4 days on your feet. So there were small things like that we tweaked, but really it was his route in its entirety, and like there should be an asterisk probably beside my time and name saying only did this because of Steve. Like he deserves it. Like I know I did want to break it or whatever, but there's almost a sense of guilt because he did way more work to deserve the record than I did. I piggybacked on him, I suppose, and that's going to be the nature of it. I think he's come up with a good route now, and there are other people waiting in the wings to beat my time, and I'm sure they will. And I'll enjoy it while it lasts, but it's probably not going to last.
You need to remember the expression "standing on the shoulders of giants." I mean, that's how things work, isn't it?
Yeah, like I just wouldn't have even tried it without Steve. So
Can I ask you, just to remind people, it's doing all the Wainwrights, 214 Wainwrights in a week, and yours was 6 days and something. What was your arrangement for the end of the days? Did you have a camper van at a pre-arranged place and always use that to get some sleep at the end of each day?
Yeah. So the way I did it was, again, because it was, the route was broken into 24 sections that Steve had come up with. There was a natural finish point to each day, and it was usually maybe you were doing 3 or 4 sections per day, and each section did there was only one section that didn't finish at a road of some sort, or a village, or and that was towards the end at Whitewater Dash, just behind Skiddaw. Someone had to walk in there with a bit of extra food and stuff like that, and was the only point that we couldn't reach with the car. So when I would finish at the end of the day, it was working out like it was between 1 and 3 a.m. each night after, as we got to the end of whatever section we were on. And I had kind of roughly planned out to take 2 to 3 hours per day, or per night stop, if you like. And so we thought that was a good idea, because if we finished at 1 and we had 3 hours rest, it would be bright again by 4 a.m. So we weren't wasting any of the light, really. And it roughly worked out that way. Like, there was the first night, I think I was going to have a 2-hour stop. So you weren't obviously sleeping for the 2 hours, because you had you were tired and you were filthy, and you needed to get your feet dried and strapped up if they needed to be, and get out of the filthy kit and get something to eat, and maybe even a shower. We were lucky enough to find a shower the odd time in places like the Achille Ratty Hut in Wasdale, and that was a very nice treat at the end of the day, was to have a shower, when you were just absolutely wrecked, and it really kind of brought you back around. So the plan was roughly like 2 to 3 hours, usually between 1 and 3 a.m. ish, thereabouts, and then get going and make most use of the light then after that.
Do you know the story about Joss Naylor? I think it was on the Lakes and Meres round, where he was going down one descent or down the valley. Someone came out of his house and said, "Do you want to come in and have a quick shower?" And he actually took a break at someone's house, had a shower, and then moved on.
Yeah, well, it's worth doing. Like, I think whatever it'll take 15 minutes to have a shower and get changed, and it could take 2 minutes if your legs are fresh, but when you're struggling to even take your socks off because you're so stiff and sore, it probably take 20 minutes to do that, but it's probably worth it for the feeling you get.
I remember personally, I was doing the International Three Peaks, running the England, Scotland, Wales, and we had a dip after Scarfell in Stockley Beck, where the bridge is. There's a little dip pool alongside that, and it was just marvellous just to spend like 10 minutes just soaking it up and getting rid of the salt and that. It's brilliant.
Yeah, you kind of think the longer the event goes, the more that kind of thing becomes important. I think, like, if the event is, say, if it all happened over the course of 24 hours, then every minute kind of counts, but over the course of a week, the 15 minutes of feeling fresh and rejuvenated probably saves you an hour down the line, so it makes sense to do something like that.
As you became cumulatively more tired, did you ever have to have any instant power naps just to recuperate unplanned?
Yeah, there's a few pictures from the round, and I'm just lying there on the side of the fell having a quick 5 minutes, and it really helped. Like, you'd kind of think there wouldn't be much use in it, but if you're stumbling along like a zombie and you need to sleep, you'd be surprised how little you actually need to kind of get a bit of a boost from it. So there was probably 4 or 5 times where I did that throughout the week, maybe more. I don't know, but
I think there was. I can't remember if I got this right. I think there was an occasion when Steve Birkinshaw had to do a power nap, and Jim Mann had the tracker at the time, and he decided to go and do a little pattern on the mountainside to fool the people following it on the tracker.
Oh, it was in his book, wasn't it? I think I remember reading that.
Yeah. Can I ask you? The film of you doing it is really good. how conscious of the cameras were you? And did you just try and shut it out where there was someone actually making some filming of it?
I didn't need to try and shut it out really, because Dave McFarlane, who made the film, I'm friends with Dave, and I knew him anyway, so it was more like having another member of me support crew and a friend there, rather than someone doing a job and making a film. So it was never invasive, and I suppose that's why I was quite happy for Dave to do it, because I knew I'd get on well with him, and he was never going to overstep the mark or stick a camera where he shouldn't, or he was very subtle about it, while also catching the footage he wanted. So I didn't have to I don't know, it wasn't like acting where I had to mind what I was saying.
I think you did drop the F-bomb once or twice, though, didn't you?
Yeah, well, there's probably some footage there he can never show.
One of the driving force of humanity is to actually stretch limits.
He knows how bad it's going to be, the pain, the tiredness, everything that goes with it, but he'll have to work out some inner strength to get through that.
It's a great challenge, and in a great part of the world, but the weather can destroy you.
He looked at me and he said, "I don't know how I'm going to get through the next 2 days."
It's not fun anymore.
Give us a feel for what one of the highlights of those days on the fells.
I was just chatting to one of the guys Ryan Quillen from CFR. He runs at Cumberland Fell Runners. He's chairman of Cumberland Fell Runners, actually, and he just sent me a video. He just found it on his phone from the Saturday morning. It was only day 2, and we were right over West Cumbria doing Grike and Gavel and Steeple and Red Pike and that kind of area. So dropping into Wasdale afterwards, and I've done Wasdale Fell Race, and I've done runs through Wasdale, but I hadn't done all the fells over that side, because it's West Cumbria, and it's harder to. It's not like my local fells where I know them very well. So that was a really nice morning, because we had more help. I think there was 4 lads running that leg with me that morning, and 4 or 5, and each leg was meant to have 2 to 3, just to make sure we had enough support. And I think there was 1 or 2 extra came along, and it was brilliant, because I knew everyone. Well, I didn't know everyone on that leg, but they were all brilliant. The banter was good, and got on really well with them. And because it was so early in the round, it's almost forgotten, and it's not in the film. There wasn't any footage from that particular leg in the film, and it was a really enjoyable leg. The weather wasn't very good, but I just had a great time with these guys, and it was a leg I was worried about because I hadn't recce'd it, and you know, wasn't 100% sure what was in store and how it was going to be after day one. And I think I just forgot all about that and just had a great time while it wasn't pissing it down on top of me. And yeah, I think that was a highlight. And there was loads. I mean, there was meeting my parents at the hotel in Dockeray. I can't remember the name of the hotel, but we were stopping there at the end of one of the legs. It was, you know, on the Tuesday, so we were 5 days into it at that stage, and I didn't know my parents were going to be there. They live in Ireland, and I think I just came through the car park of the hotel, and next thing just turned to me left and saw my dad in the doorway of the hotel, and couldn't believe it, and it was a real boost. And then the Ambleside AC, their club run is on a Tuesday night, so the same evening we were doing Go Barrow and Little Mel and Great Mel Fell, and I met them on top. They had a banner, the Ambleside AC banner, and I'd forgotten that I think it was Jim Tyson had said they were going to try and organise a club run to fit in with whatever leg I was on, and I'd kind of forgotten all about it at that stage. I was, you know, half asleep at that stage, and just to see them all up the Fell, I couldn't work it out. I think it was as we were coming off Go Barrow, there was one or two of the club members out on it was either Little Mel or Great Mel, I can't bloody remember, but there was one or two of them on the Fell, and I thought, geez, they've come a long way for a...
That's quite a long way out, isn't it? Yeah.
yeah. So that's quite nice of them, and suddenly, as we were on our way to summiting one or the other, I can't remember which, all these other club members were running down towards me. I said, "Oh, right, yeah, there's a club run," and I ran quite. I mean, relatively, it wasn't quick, but it was relatively quick based on how bloody tired I was, and that gave me a boost. So they were probably two or three of the nicest moments. So.
Okay. Can we move on from the Wainwrights effort? And I'm going to throw some possible what's next for you. There could be a fast Bob Graham round. There could be Finley's Cooling Ridge record. The other big rounds. A Frog Graham even. What's your swimming like? Any other challenges in mind?
Yeah, like I first of all, anyway, a fast Bob Graham, it depends on who you're comparing it to. If you're talking about the record, then I wouldn't be anywhere near it. But if you're talking about fast relative to the average pace of the Bob Graham, then yeah, maybe a little bit quicker than that. But I've done a VG back in 2012 before I'd ever moved here. I managed to get together a bit of a support crew and did one then, and I would like to go back and maybe do it at some point, just without much fuss about it, and see how quick I could go. I didn't know what I was getting myself in for that day, so but it was fun. It was a great day, and like Finlay Wild Cooling Ridge record is way beyond my capability as well. It's laughable actually to even suggest it, but that's something. I mean, I'd love to go and do the Cooling Ridge, but I would never be anywhere near that record. I mean, I've almost no climbing experience, and
I'll tell you what, I've done the Cooling Ridge, but on a 2-day overnight bivvy level, and it was just some of the best times ever.
Yeah.
And there was a music. Do you know North Wales very well? Do you know Tryfan and the summit of Tryfan with Adam and Eve, the two stones on the top of Tryfan?
Yeah, so I know of it, but I've not actually been up to it.
It's one of the challenges is to jump across this gap at the top of Tryfan.
Yeah.
Part of our training for doing the Cooling Ridge was to wild camp on the top of Tryfan, and we just boiled inside sleeping bags and bivvy bags, and then threw away our sleeping bags when we did the ridge. And of course, things didn't go that well because it was rather different in Scotland. But the morning after bivvying, we just got up and did the jumping across the Adam and Eve, and you get something called the Freedom of Tryfan. And there's a brilliant picture which I'll try and get them to put up of me in midair jumping across that thing. It's one of the weirdest and nicest things to do. Yeah. So big rounds, Scottish round, Ramsey.
Go ahead. Yeah, I mean, again, like I'd love to do the Ramsey. I'd love to do something in Scotland. Like I have thought about doing, something a bit bigger in Scotland, but obviously, definitely not this year. Probably not even next year. There'd be a bit of planning involved and a bit of wrecking to do first. But like there's so many things that I suppose I'd like to do, and I don't know. It's when you do something very, very long, I suppose you've only got a certain amount of that in your system. I mean, I'd like to think I could just keep doing various different challenges and it wouldn't take much out of you. But I think once you start going into multi-day stuff, you have to kind of pick and choose. You've only got so much in the tank, I suppose. And that something like the Monroes maybe, or that
continuous
kind of
round of the Monroes, yeah.
Yeah, no, I say that. I like. I've done a little bit of thinking about it, and I've spoken to a couple of people, and but that's definitely not set in stone by any manner of means.
Right.
I'd love to just get back to doing some long races as well. There's a really lovely route to do in Snowdonia. There's a 100-mile race down there in September, and you never know, it might go ahead by September. Maybe things will be a bit better, so that might be an option. And then stuff in the Alps, Tour de Géant is a race I've done a couple of times before, and that's beautiful 200-mile loop of the Aosta Valley, and it's just an amazing place. And if you've ever, I'm sure you know yourself, but the people of the Italian Alps are absolutely mountain running crazy. I'd liken it to where I'm from in Cork. In Ireland we play hurling, and it's a very parochial game. Every club, every parish has a club, and you're obviously very proud of your own club, and the kind of feeling of what's the word, togetherness that brings, and because it's a very local thing, there's great pride in it. And I think that's the same in Italy. These small villages that maybe have a race on, it's a similar thing. It's like a national sport almost in those areas. And doing races over there, you've great support out on the trails, and so I'd like obviously to get back over there as well.
Can I ask you what you feel your best actual traditional fell race result has been?
Yeah, well, I don't have too many good results. I've got some results, but not very good ones. I've done Wasdale a couple of times and Langdale a few times and Three Shires. I haven't done Ennerdale yet because it seems to fall at a very inconvenient time with other races. Same with Borrowdale. So there too, I'd really like to do, but I don't have impressive results at those races. I've done 2:20 maybe at Langdale, which is way off the front of the race, and I can't remember what I did. It was 4:10 maybe at Wasdale. So again, not troubling the front runners, but I loved those particular races. Wasdale is just an absolutely brilliant race, and Langdale's different again because you always get a big crowd at Langdale, so it's a bit more of an atmosphere there, and the race starts and finishes at the Old Dungeon Guild. So our club organised it as well, so there's a real nice atmosphere at that one. And I think if I would love to really give the classics a go and train specifically for them, but there's always another longer race maybe in the year that kind of detracts from my preparation. Old County Tops is another really unique classic. Well, I would call it a classic fell race because of you go up the three high points of the old counties, and I've done that quite a few times now, and because it's a pairs race, you have to run it with a partner. It's a really, really good day out, and that's probably my best fell race result actually, because me and my partner have won that a few times. And
who's your partner of choice for that?
Well, I'm not monogamous when it comes to partnership. I've done it with Ben Abdelnour my first year, and Second time we won it, it was with Matt Reedy, also Ambleside. And last year, myself and George Foster won it, also Ambleside. So, and I've had a few hard days out in that race as well. It's quite a long, hard race, and certainly haven't won it each time we've done it. But that's a race where I might turn up and win. Do you know what I mean? Whereas I'm probably not going to be lucky enough to turn up to Langdale and ever win it. Like so.
Okay.
Take what you get.
I've always been a southerner travelling up to the lakes to do fell running and racing when I was active, and I've only ever done one of the classics, Lake Classics, and that's 3 Shires, and I had an absolute nightmare choosing to not contour around off Pike and Blisco and going down and then right back up Lingmore or Lingmel, whichever one it is, and it's just a disaster, absolute disaster. So yeah, you can have, fit as you like, you can have a really bad race just by making the wrong decision, can't you?
Well, three Shires in particular, yeah, because there's a bit of route choice there, and that descent off Blisco has caught a lot of people out in the past, because you've got the Blisco Fell Race, and you've got Great Lakes Fell Race, and then you've got Shires, and they all go off Blisco, but they all go a different direction, right. And it's easy to get mixed up there. But did you go? So when you were coming off Blisco, did you go too far left or too far right?
I came too low and came to the south of the tarn.
Okay, right, yeah.
I lost massive height and had to. It was almost, ridiculously steep and unrunnable when you come to the other side. So it was a complete disaster.
Yeah.
And I was rescued by a handful of sweets at the top of the last summit.
Well, my first time doing the Shires was September just gone, so it was my first race back after doing the Wainwrights, and I was lucky enough I hadn't had a chance to recce that particular line. So I knew the general way off Blisco, but it does get a little bit tricky then to just get on the right trod to make sure you end up in the most optimal spot, down by the tarn, and I just happened to be following, I can't remember who it was now, but Tom Simpson maybe, and anyway, I was fairly sure that we were on the right track, but it's tricky. Like it's not obvious. There's a lot of little trods off that particular part of the fell. So
I must say, for myself, races like Fairfield were ones that I could easily deal with, because it was a one-up, a lot of small up and downs on top, and then a run down at the other end. And for someone who didn't train in the hills enough, that was enjoyable. I could really enjoy that, and it was not too long.
So what was your the particular race that you liked doing? What was your favourite type?
Probably Fairfield. I quite liked the obscure ones like Luffrig and Benson Knott, and just ones like that were way less popular sometimes.
Yeah. Have you been to? Because Luffrig's a Wednesday night race now, and this was meant to be my first year organising Luffrig, and it's a really popular race now because it's the first one of the summer Wednesday night races, So I think if you turn up nowadays, it's bloody full up, It's
we're talking last millennium. But I did get to run in the world champs. The World Vets was in Keswick in 2005, and that was just kind of when I was coming to the end of being able to run through various injuries and stuff. So pleased to be able to say I could do that. I can tell my kids run the world champs and leave it at that, really.
Did that go Skiddaw?
Yeah, but depending on which age group you're in, you didn't go all the way. They did a weird up and down on the right-hand side. I can't remember what the fell's called, off to the right-hand side of where you normally go up. So you went right down into the ditch and then back up the other side. On my age group, I was in the 55s at the time. So can I ask you who you looked up to when you were progressing into the sport? Who was kind of, hey, I'd like to be able to run like them, I'd like to be able to beat them, and then eventually you might have been able to do that? Who were your kind of look up tos?
I think I probably picked people to look up to that I was never going to catch.
Tell me who am I then?
Yeah, well, where I was from in Cork in Ireland, it's it's a city and it's not known for mountain running or fell running. So the people I was learning about when I first got kind of an idea that the sport even existed were the people that were mentioned in Richard Askwith's book, Beating the Clouds. And I can't remember who recommended the book or how I came upon it, but like that was a really, really interesting read for someone who didn't know anything about the scene over here. The history of it and the way the book was written. You were learning about a season as it went along, but also all these legends of the sport. So I suppose there was the obvious people in that book that Billy Bland and Joss Naylor and guys like that, but because they were detailing what was going on that season as well, you had Rob Jebb's name being mentioned all the time, and Simon Bailey, and I'm just trying to think now who his name's just gone out of my bloody head now. Ian Holmes. Like Ian Holmes, to me, I don't know Ian. I've only met him once or twice, I think, at a race, and there's footage of him running, various videos on YouTube of older fell races, and I always love the way he runs. It's as if he's falling down the hill, but obviously he's not falling. He's just I don't know. His technique or the way he moves, it just looks totally effortless, and like he's whatever he is now, 52 or 3, and he's still really competitive, and I still can't catch him anyway. I need to pick my day, when he's tired or something like that. But a guy like that's just been there for years, and Rob Jebb as well, because Rob only lives down the road, and he's just to be able to keep repeating really consistently good results, and then, like in Rob's case, win the Three Peaks cyclocross race, whatever it is, 10 or 11 times, and just to display that kind of consistency when you would imagine someone else would come along who would be able to beat him, and up until certainly the last year or so, he's been right up the front of that race. So guys like that just no bullshit, just turn up, smash the race out, usually win it or be in the top 5, and be able to repeat that week after week. I think that's very impressive. So.
I must just say that the nicest thing about writing my history of running and the various things I've been through, I already had heroes because I've been in the sport at another level. So Billy and Joss, Kenny were just 3 magnificent sort of examples of runners to me. And then I've had the experience of sitting in their front rooms, interviewing them for their stories. And it's just like, if you told me this years ago, I wouldn't have believed it, but it's just a magical experience. And my next book is actually about a biography of Billy Bland. And I think it'll surprise some people when they find out some of the background to his life, and the fact that, he's born in a farming background but never got into it. The fact that he was a really good footballer, the fact that he's now a really good cyclist, and his views on the environment and how things have changed in Borrolo are really an interesting part of that story. So I'm hoping that people will want to hear about the other side of Billy Bland, because he's a very multifaceted person, a very interesting person, and it's been absolutely marvellous just hearing his take on stuff, and how he used to say to people, if you want to come train with me, you keep up or you don't bother. It's like absolutely no prisoners, and he just says it like it is, and hopefully it'll be a fascinating read for people, and it's something that I'm really looking forward to seeing when it comes out in a couple of months' time.
So you say a couple of months will be.
Well, it's scheduled. The problem is there's an issue in publishing at the minute, in that printers aren't working, distribution's disrupted, bookshops aren't open. So it was scheduled for the 16th of July. It might be a couple of weeks later. Hopefully it will be out soon. I mean, I've got a launch booked in Keswick, and I've got a Skiddaw hotel booked, but I just don't think that's going to be possible to do, which is really frustrating, because Billy's going to be there, and it's all going to be a really good thing. So the book is called All or Nothing at All, and it's possible to pre-order it now. So if people listening to this want to, hopefully there'll be a link to where you can pre-order it.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to it coming out.
Yeah, I'd certainly be keen to read it. I don't, again, like I don't know Billy, but from, you know, when I got into the sport and reading Feet in the Clouds, he was clearly probably the most talented, or well, hard working, I'm not sure which, but
Right.
the best all round guy probably. And I like the idea of just building dry stone walls and then just smashing every he did, and just
well, he likes a bit of myth building as well. So he once said, "Oh, well, the weather was so bad, I stayed in and ran on the spot in the kitchen for 3 hours." And it's like, did you really do that, Billy? And he said, "Well, maybe only once," he said. But yeah, he was a very hard trainer, and a lot of it's down to just determination and willpower. And he did the same as Jeb. You know, he won Wasdale, Bordale multiple times. And, fantastic record.
Yeah.
I should have asked you earlier on. Steve Birkinshaw obviously documented how his recovery went after his Wainwrights. Didn't go that well. He had a lot of issues with fatigue and that. How was your recovery afterwards?
It was as you'd expect for the first few weeks. You know, very sore and tired, and slept a lot and struggled to sleep actually a lot too because of the times I was getting up during that week, and so my body clock, I suppose, was all over the place. You know, after I was able to start jogging really, really slowly after a week or so, and wasn't really properly training, but just going out and moving the legs, and within maybe 6 weeks I was able to think about actual training again, and me and Sarah were in the Alps by that stage for a couple of months in the summer, and Sarah was doing a lot of racing over there, so it gave me a chance to do some training, and I felt like, you know, maybe I was all right, and things were recovering, and the week I got back, picked up a bit of a cold coming back, and then did 3 showers that weekend, and just felt like there was nothing after the first hour. There was nothing left in the tank, you know, and that's the way it kind of played out for the rest of the year in any race I did. So, but now I think I do feel like I have recovered, but time will tell, I suppose, when we have a race.
Okay. Has Sarah ever thought of doing a fast Bob Graham? Because she needs to do it quickly before Emily Forsberg comes over and takes the record away. Is there any thoughts there you're prepared to talk about or not?
Well, I think she'd be capable if that was the way she went with her training. I think she'd be capable of doing a very fast time, but she is still very competitive at you know, the kind of distances of, well, up to almost marathon distance on the fells, and so I think the way she'd be thinking is get a little bit more out of that before turning her attention to longer stuff. But like Emily Forsberg will struggle to beat Jasmine's time anyway, I think, because it's such a good time, and that was really, really, really great round by her, and I think any athlete will struggle with that. You know, most of the men will struggle with that time. So
presumably Sarah's got targets in the mountain running, sort of sky running scene as well, has she?
Yeah, so again, I mean, things are up in the air at the moment about what races are on and this year, but one race that Sarah's done the last couple of years is Sierra Zinal in Switzerland, and that's 20 miles, I think, from Sierra, up big long climb and quite rolling trail then, and then a big descent down into Zinal, and it's a real classic European mountain race, and very, very competitive race, and she's done really well the last 2 years at it. So I think that would be one she would love to be able to do again this year. And then the European or the World Championships? The World Championships are in November in Lanzarote, I think, this year, if they're on. And so that maybe is the most realistic target, because it's November and you never know, you might be able to get that done. So
I kind of feel time-wise we probably need to wrap up in a minute. I'm just going to ask you a question, and the question basically leads to me telling you a story. So don't worry if you haven't got an answer to it. Have you ever been confused for someone else more famous than yourself?
Well, I'll let you answer your question, but I'll tell you a quick story first before I do. I haven't, but there was some guy. It's happened a couple of times. I have an Instagram account, and a couple of times I've gotten really abusive messages from people complaining about why I sent the guy off or gave a free against another team. And it turns out that there's a referee called Paul Tierney in the Premier League. And they assumed it was me without looking. I mean, if they looked at the pictures I put on social media, then they'll realize I'm not a referee anyway for a start. So I've usually just said, have you actually looked at who you're talking to? And they kind of apologize, and that's the end of it. So
Excellent.
But anyway, you go ahead.
Well, no, it's just and this is a long time ago, and I'm absolutely not proud of this story, but it still amuses me, and it will amuse Doug Scott, who's the person behind Community Action Nepal, which is the people who are sponsoring this discussion. So it's a long time ago in a pub in the Peak District, and as they used to say, drinks had been taken. This guy comes up to me, says, "Are you Doug Scott?" Now I looked somewhat like him, okay? In the days when Doug had long hair and he was beard and glasses and all this. And I had a drink or two, and I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Oh, can I buy you a drink?" So he can't buy me drinks, which is fine, nothing wrong with that. Except later on, he came along with a book and said, "Would you sign this book for me?" And as I'm signing Doug Scott in this book, I noticed that just above it was Edmund Hillary's signature, where he'd actually got the real Edmund Hillary to sign his book. And I was counter-signing it in a forged way. And I sort of felt bad about it. And I told this story to Doug Scott at a book launch one time, and he just thought it was hilarious that that I could be so blatant and do such a silly thing. And he said, "I'll use that one in my own life story from now on." Yeah, it's one of those things I don't feel proud about, but it happened.
If someone was going to buy me a beer because they thought it was someone else, then I'd probably go along with it as well.
Well, you do. It was just like, why not? You know. But of course, it escalated out of control. So there we go. Okay, well, it's been really brilliant talking to you, and I really appreciate your time. And say it's been fascinating to hear about the background to your career and what you've got planned. So thanks very much for that.
Yeah, it was lovely to chat to you, Stephen. I'm looking forward to reading your latest book. I'll probably learn a lot of stuff I didn't know, because you only hear about the stuff on the surface, don't you? The how good a runner he was, and you don't really.
Well, the other good thing is that I was able to interview quite a lot of the sort of players, and so I've had a long discussion with Gavin Bland and Scoffer and various people who've been involved in running with him, and there's just some awesome backstories there. So I'm sure you'll enjoy it when it comes.
I look forward to it.
All right, thanks for your time anyway.
No worries, Steve. Talk to you soon.